experiences can impact your friendships. Do you want to be happy in life? Studies show that everybody is born with a range of happiness and that they often don't get out of that set range. Events like winning the lottery may push us over our range, but that usually only lasts for 6 months or less. The goal is then to not get out of that range, but to stay on the upper part of the range. The one factor that repeatedly has been found to be common to those at the top of the ranges is quality friendships. Today I want to talk about friendships and what I have learned from studying the subject over the last year. I'll start by giving you some of my story and why friendships are important to me. Then I'll discuss the importance of being intentional, the importance of sharing experiences, and what I learned from having students at Range take a survey about their friendships. Have you done something with somebody, made memories with that person, gotten back from that experience, whether it was a hike, a sports tournament, and then when you got back from that experience, you know that your friendships had totally changed? These experiences have always fascinated me, and with my capstone, I wanted to dive deeper into the reality behind the good in these experiences. These different memory-making moments were key for me in my life because I've moved states 2 different times and had to make new friends multiple times. These moves, especially the most recent one, was one of the darkest times of my life because I doubted that I could ever make friends as close as the ones that I had in Washington, but I was wrong. Becoming good at making new friends is a skill that I had to pick up and that I believe God desires us to do as well. This gave me a good reason to further explore these strategies so that I could share them with you through my speech. Throughout this year, I found that learning how these experiences impact your friendships allow you to learn more about your friendships, but also more about yourself. In terms of my faith, I believe the research that I have done this year has taught me the valuable skill of self-reflection. Although we're often told to self-reflect for our capstone class, I've taken up self-reflecting as something that I want to do on a daily basis. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Before I start talking about things that I've done this year, I want to talk a little bit about how I got here. I have had 2 big moves in my life, from Kentucky to Washington when I was 10, and from Washington to Colorado when I was 14. Through this most recent move to Colorado, I quickly built a new idea of friendship and what it was. Kentucky was, and still is to me, my home. I would often hang out with the middle school youth group there because of my older sisters, and I was really connected at that church. Some of my closest friends are still there. Although I was really invested in everything in Kentucky, it wasn't very hard for me to move because I was only 10. I remember thinking, why are my sisters so sad that we are moving? This is exciting. Little did I know the exact situation would happen to me 4 years later in Washington. Looking back to my life in Washington, I was just a super shy kid who didn't know the depths of my friendships until I left. The move to Colorado was much harder. I didn't know how to keep contact with my friends from Washington, and it didn't seem natural to attempt to start a conversation with them every once in a while. I prayed to God for help with the maintenance of these friendships, but it felt really fake and forced because of how spontaneous it would be reaching out to them. After spending a couple of months at Front Range in Colorado, I felt pretty accepted and connected. I had a close group of friends, and some of the experiences that improved these friendships and maintained them was messing around at IKEA in the parking garage and going on spontaneous 20-mile bike rides. When the pandemic began, I met somebody who would join our group of friends and become a good friend of mine to this day. During COVID, I only continued to grow closer to them because of our constant weekly hangouts, and this group quickly became a better group of my friends than I had in Washington, although I didn't want to admit it. Another experience that grew my relationship with this friend was starting a lawn business together. Although we made close to no money, my friend went from somebody I barely knew to one of my best friends after that summer. All the experiences and good times with these friends is the main reason why I came back to Front Range my senior year. I made the decision to do this capstone because I want people to be open to taking risks by meeting new people, willing to explore friendships by sharing good experiences, and realize the beneficial things that can happen even during hardships to improve friendships. Now that's just a bit of my story, but I can't go on forever now, so I want to talk about 3 lessons I learned this year focusing on my capstone project. How has what you looked for in a friend changed from when you were young to now? This is the question I asked myself in my interview at the beginning of this year. It seems that friendships change as you grow older. Relationships become more trust-filled later on in life because you are sharing everything with them. Shortly after that interview, I started reflecting on the question that I had asked. I noticed that I transitioned from finding friends who I share common ground with to starting to look for friends who complement my strengths and weaknesses. I started looking for people who accepted me and who I found a strong connection with. Not only should we ask, how have my friendships changed, but also, how have they changed me? In my life, and possibly yours too, I have learned to surround myself with people who don't just compliment me, but who will allow me to become a better version of myself. I truly think that you should be constantly finding flaws into your life to prepare yourself for your future, and that is what I most reflected through in my solo. In my solo, a time where you sit alone and reflect for 8 hours in the outdoors, I wrote in my Capstone journal about how I had become a more encouraging person, but in that, I have become someone who was less often standing up for what I believe in, which has always been a trait that I had, seeming as I'm usually pretty blunt and honest. Overall, the experience of learning to reflect, especially on this issue, has improved drastically. I've used this new practice of reflecting to improve a couple of things in my life. Most significant, I've come to value the virtue of encouragement. Although I don't consider myself a mean or negative person in general, I think that sarcasm can often go too far and lead to us losing friends that is unnecessary, for no reason. Although we should try to always be ourselves as much as possible, opting to be a primary encouragement in our friends' lives, even if sometimes we don't want to be, it is always a good way to shine light to the people around us. I think that before we start encouraging somebody, although almost always positive, we should ask ourselves, how close am I to this person? Is our relationship superficial, or is it deep enough that I can challenge them to change? Overall, through this first semester, I learned that reflection is necessary after having good experiences with friends, but also good experiences by yourself. I've always loved the outdoors, but I never knew the extent or specifics as to why I loved them, or specifically why I loved hanging out with friends in the outdoors. Was it the adventure feeling, the quality time? This is something I dove into in both semesters of my Capstone research. During the summer and throughout this year, this adventure has been the ability to connect with friends through hiking. At the start of this year, something that brought us all together was the 13ers the seniors did together on the senior retreat, and I thought it was pretty cool. Outside of the intentional senior hike, my friend group and I during the summer would try and go on hikes once every 2 weeks, and this is what led me to doing research about it 3/4 through this year, my research project, about why doing things in the indoors is not as beneficial as doing things in the outdoors when it comes to friends. In this project, I focused on the factual benefits of hiking or other physical activities with friends. When we went on our hikes, we often wouldn't bring our phones. This gets rid of the constant pressure of fear of missing out, and I think that having fewer things to worry about leads to stronger and less distracted experiences in the outdoors. On the other hand, some benefits I learned stem from experiences outdoors were improved problem solving because of the challenges it raises, seeming as we never stayed on trails. The biggest thing that I looked into in my research project and developed my own view on was the bonding memories that you make with the difficulty of the experience. Hiking, in my opinion, is one of the best things to do with anybody, no matter the experience, because you can use your effort to balance out the difficulty of the hike. That balance is one of the things that makes hiking such a good thing to do together with friends. Other benefits of hiking that I researched about were more personal, like improved mood and better sleep. Like I said earlier, we never stayed on trails. However, we would always get lost walking up some random mountain or hill, but it was awesome. We would come back from hikes with no water, food, and always had mysterious scrapes and bruises. But to be honest, I don't think there's a better spot to find new things about the people around you. One of the most memorable experiences that I had while hiking, I remember everybody getting past the river by jumping from rock to rock, but when it was my turn, I slipped into the river. With my wet shoes and socks, we climbed a muddy 45-degree angle hill, but it was a blast. Eventually, we got comfortable on a bundle of big rocks overlooking the curving road in front of us, hundreds of feet below, and we started venting. We vented about college, where we're going to the future, moving soon, nervousness, family, friends, and even children. Things that we probably would never talk about on a normal hangout sesh. I think that the environment you're in really defines and changes you. The trees, the hard ground, but most importantly, the quietness and overall freedom that you have while hiking. Hiking has been something that has opened up a whole new world for me in terms of finding things to do, and I think it will continue to be an experience that I will cherish for a long time. If you don't know somebody very well, take them on a hike. Through this next chapter in my Capstone story, I wanted to dive deeper into other people's friendships. With inspiration from Mr. Schultz, I decided to do a survey on friendships with all grades 9 through 12. The survey was anonymous, and it allowed friends to be open and honest about their friendships. To be honest, I didn't really think that they would be that open, but it was some of the most honest explanations of friendships that I've ever seen. What I learned and took away from this experience was that everybody looks for different things in friendships. And though a lot of people had different answers, a lot of people had similar answers, some had totally different responses. Some people went really in-depth talking about how they need somebody who is loyal, will be there for me, somebody who matches your energy, understands you, feels like you can count on them. Others weren't super specific and just said, a cool dude. A common thing that I saw was honesty, which originally I skipped over, but as I thought of it more, I thought it was pretty sad. Students wouldn't even say anything else. All they wanted was honesty and somebody who cared. Showing that care is often all somebody needs. I learned that before we attempt to make friends with somebody, we have to recognize what we are looking for in each other. Some people aren't meant to be friends, but we can always be friendly with everyone. After I got my initial takeaway from the survey, I wanted people to do their own self-reflection and learn more about themselves. My survey also asked, how comfortable are you with your friends? I feel like we all assume everybody is super close to their friends, but this just isn't the case. Over 10% of people said on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most comfortable, they said they are a 1 when it comes to being comfortable with their friends. People need somebody to talk to, and I think that we should all be an option for those people that just want to share what's on their minds. Another question I asked was, what experiences improve your friendship the most? I was really curious with this one, and I didn't really know what people would respond with, but the responses ended up being really cool. The most common answers to my question was quality time, hiking, going through hard things, sharing personal experiences and stories. Somebody was really honest and said thrilling things like crisis, adventure, risk, and danger defined their friendships the most, which I found really interesting. Similar to the previous question, an overwhelming majority explained that experiences they most often look for are times where they can open up and trust the other person to not share what is on their friend's mind. We often overlook the value of these simple times where we can share what's on our mind to our friends, and I think that is a mistake almost everybody makes. Maybe these simple times don't lead to anything, but it's the attempt that really means something. We have all had horrible mistakes in our friendships, and I think we obsess over our mistakes. Often, after we temporarily damage one of our friendships, we believe we are unable to repair that friendship or are too scared to even try. I'm here to tell you it is worth trying. Relationships are the most important thing on earth. In a million years, the only thing that will matter is your relationships to people and your relationship with God. Much of what Jesus taught us is how to have successful relationships on earth. Once you get past apologies, I think planning shared experiences is one of the best ways to repair and rebuild your friendships. I am convinced friendships matter to be happy in this life, and I want to learn how to be the best possible friend to others. We need to intentionally examine our friendships so we can build them well, and one of the best ways to improve friendships is to share new experiences together. From my survey of students, I discovered friendship also has to do with being honest, being available, and being loyal to another person. Something that I challenge you all to do is just to be more open so that you can build relationships that keep you at the top of your friendship scale. These things that we should be more open to could be small, or they could seem like a risk and be out of reach. A mistake that I made in my past was only looking at the past and present. In my move, I didn't see my future. I didn't think that we would make new friends, but the decisions I made and the situations I put myself in allowed me to quickly make new friends here within a couple months. I think that's something we can all try in our friendships is to find that next big step. Some people are scared of big changes, big steps. The Bible doesn't talk about risk-taking super directly, but it does say that whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Don't be afraid to make that change or take that step. My most recent big step was making the move back to Front Range. Who knows, maybe your next big step is tomorrow, whether it be having that conversation, making that call, or maybe in a year asking that person if they want to go on a hike. Recognizing that next step is something that I think we should be constantly reflecting and asking God about because it defines the person you're going to be later in life. Are you going to be the person who didn't have that experience or take that risk? Or are you going to be the person who took that next step, made that decision, went on that hike, mission trip, or out for coffee? Not very often do we get a chance to have an experience with somebody we don't know. Are you guys going to be the one to take it? Thank you.